Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies for the most boring title I've ever used. It's a bit more than that, and it's a bit more interesting, I hope. So, as we're going to talk about, this is about education and about building the pipeline to replace us in this room. This is not about ISC squared, it's about pipelining the talent of the future. And I'll actually conclude with some thoughts of where we're going and what we can do next. So that's who we are. I have 110,000, 115,000 members globally. I have 20,000 members in EMEA. I am growing at a huge rate, and my members keep telling me, for God's sake, Adrian, will you find someone who's much better looking and younger to come and speak? Because unfortunately, one of the things that we all know is our profession is getting older. The average age is rising. And it is pretty non-diverse. But we can come on to that one as well later. That's what I do, that's the things I have after my name. I do spend a lot of time working with universities. I'm really pleased that my Cambridge student has successfully transferred from her MPhil to her PhD this year, so I'm really chuffed for her. She's only got 2 more years left. But yeah, I look after PhDs and masters, and I even do undergraduate teaching as well as part of my role. It's something I strongly believe in. I strongly would suggest that everybody in this room goes and lectures once at a university. There are 1 or 2 academics in the room, and I'm sure they'd love to have you turn up and tell them something, and their students, about what life really is like as a cybersecurity professional. So, I'm going to give you a lesson from a connected Jeep. We all know the Chrysler Jeep hack, yes? Everyone's nodding, good, good. If you really read through all the verbiage about it, and forget the fact it was, it was done on high profile, everything else. The mistakes that allowed it to happen existed in software and systems at least 10 years ago. There's a big question there, is why are we repeating the same mistakes that we have published and discussed week after week, month after month, year after year? Why? One of the big reasons is that not enough people know about what we do. Not enough people are educated in the basics and the principles of security from the year dot right through to university to understand that today there is no such thing as a safe system, and today every system needs to be secure. That is actually the lesson from the connected Jeep. There is, of course, another lesson, which is if you're going to upgrade your cars or do a recall, don't send stuff via the post on a USB stick. I'm sure there's a lesson in there somewhere as well. That's my first polemic, if you like. The second one is that's what IoT really stands for. It's not the Internet of Things. It's insecure, open, and trustless. And we've got 50 billion of these devices coming our way. We had a gentleman before talked about Apple Watches and Fitbits. I wouldn't trust a Fitbit further than I could throw it. It can't even read your heart rate properly. And yet people are putting these devices on their wrists, and they are sharing their intimate, personal details with the world. I kind of think, again, we are missing some of the points here, and we are repeating the mistakes that we did before. However, IoT is pretty cool. I haven't got an Apple Watch because my wife won't let me buy one. She's taken my credit card away because I've been traveling, so I can't buy one. She knows I'm a bit of a gadget freak. The other thing, of course, is that we talk about connected cars, we talk about IoT and all these wonderful things, cyber insurance, data centers. We don't just do one thing in our profession. In fact, to be honest, there are 2 things that really, really get me going. If I ever see another picture of someone in a hoodie near a computer, I think I will probably scream. Very long and very loud. Because that is about 20% of what we really do. 80% of what we do is communication, problem solving, risk identification. We're thinking, and only then do we actually end up sitting at computers and doing things. Hackers are the same. They do a lot of thinking because they want to work out where can I get the information that's going to make me rich and allow me to buy that next Ferrari. Don't believe me? That's how the cops often catch the nasty guys, is the fact they all end up buying posh cars and leave them outside their driveways. Criminals do have some stupid traits. But we do lots of things, yet when we go and talk about cybersecurity, when it's in the news or in the media, it's all about hackers, it's all about hoodies. And until we break that mold, we're not going to help people get into our profession either. Our profession is really rich and really interesting, and not just one thing. It works. However, if you think about what we all talk about, what we all do, what we're trying to protect, we actually have a set of principles that we all abide to, we all know about. Whether you test them through a professional certification, whether you demonstrate them through an oral exam, or whether you show them every day in what you do, we all cleave to a set of principles. If you know what the principles are, you can teach anybody them. Just like you can teach the principles of maths, physics, biology, chemistry. I'm a chemist, by the way. I still remember the principles of chemistry because I was taught them properly. I was taught them and they were bashed into me over many, many years. You can do the same. We can do the same with cybersecurity. So there are lots of opportunities to do cyber education. You can actually argue you should start from as soon as a child picks up an iPad. Yes, that's going to be maybe next year. But there are points in an educational journey where we, as a profession, and this is the big we, this is not my 110,000 members, this is all of us globally as a profession, where we can make a difference. This is UK-centric, I make no apologies for this, because this is where we've been doing some work I'm going to talk about later. The GCSE, the Comp Sci, Computer Science GCSE, which now replaces, thank goodness, the old here's how you use Word and here's how you use Excel, GCSE, it actually talks about how computers work and stuff, now has the option to build a bit of cybersecurity into it. We can actually teach children at 14 the fundamentals of cybersecurity, and we can then show educationally they get it. We can actually move up through the A-levels, through the undergraduate, through the sort of professional development piece, and we can move through apprenticeships, foundation degrees, masters, PhDs, and then obviously the more sort of the older, the mature student, the career transitioner, or the person who's had a couple of years in practice and then goes and does a master's at a certain university. We can use all these opportunities to build in cyber security into relevant, now it's going to be a word I'm going to use very carefully there, relevant educational pieces, degrees, comp sci degrees and so on. So remember this diagram, because you're going to see it again. But this is about lifelong learning. This is about a schema of providing lifelong learning, building on the principles of cybersecurity. And it works. It works if you point it at the laptop, not if you point it at the audience. So how did we start the journey? Well, a couple of years ago, we worked with, and we still do, we have a great relationship with the Council of Professors and Heads of Computing. That's every professor and every department that teaches computer science in the UK. Give or take, it's about 108, 120, I think. So that's their trade body. That's where they all sit round and decide how life works and examine courses and understand how things are changing. So we sat down and worked with them. We had a meeting where we invited the academics in and we provided lunch, so they all turned up. We invited industry in, and we realised that we knew what we wanted but couldn't tell the education establishments how to provide it. So we were going, it's all your fault. And the educators were looking at us going, well, yeah, you say you want this, but how do we convert that into education? How do we package it up in a way whereby our students can be taught, be educated, and then demonstrate it back to an academic level of rigor? They get it. In fact, we were talking past each other. And in some cases, lots of finger pointing and a little bit of shouting, but that's, you know, that's normal. And we actually wrote a white paper with the CPHC looking at things like why are computer science graduates not getting jobs, because they still have one of the highest unemployment rates out of all graduates 6 months after they graduate. We live in a world run by IT, and computer science graduates can't get jobs full stop. There's obviously something going on there. There's something not quite right. You are less likely to have a job as a comp sci person, and it's a very big average, than someone who has a job or gets a degree in fine arts. However, that is changing, thankfully. But one of the big problems we also found was not only that the universities and ourselves not talking to each other properly, lots of people were offering courses that were forensics and appealed to the CSI factor. You know, one academic said to me, I have this problem that students turn up and go, okay, where's my badge, my gun and my Ferrari? Because that's the image that forensics has. It doesn't have the image of being a really precise, process-driven, very technical subject. And the other thing, of course, is that because we don't tell people about cybersecurity, the lecturers couldn't explain to their students there was a fantastic career. There was a real opportunity. In fact, if you look at the stats at the moment, the average salary outside of London for a cybersecurity job is 50K. Isn't bad. But students don't know that because we never tell them it was this great career. So the students don't want to do cybersecurity because they don't understand why they have to do it. So lots of reasons why we had to start talking. This was about 2.5, 3 years ago. We, of course, we all understand that we want lots of people in cybersecurity. We can't fill the jobs up. We're paying premium to get people in, and we don't have students with the right skills or aptitudes. So this is a way of looking at it. This is basically saying that in the UK, which is the white thing up here, these are the top 3 skills or the top 3 abilities we want from new hires: comms, analysis, and risk management. Now the first 2, you can't necessarily really teach at a university because they're quite soft skills, but you can, and most universities do have programs in place to assist with that, group projects, problem solving, and so on. But things like risk management can be taught. The processes, the standards are published, they're available, but it's knowing how industry will view that kind of output, what they're looking for, that was missing. And as you can see down here, technology and specific platforms comes not a poor 4th, but a reasonable 4th place. So once you understand the fact that employers and industry and academics are talking past each other, industry knows what it wants but can't express it, you come to the next point, which is, okay, how can we get everybody to start talking? This is where the connected Jeep, I wish it happened 2 years ago because my life would have been a lot easier. We want to stem the vulnerabilities. We want to stop the mistakes of the past being repeated. We want students to have an understanding of the things that need to be done. And we want students to understand that there is a career in cybersecurity, that they don't just have to do computer science or IT and business management and end up working for an Intel or an IBM or a Big Four or whatever. They can come and work for somebody else. So that was the objective, and that was the objective we all started to coalesce around. So we got the CPHC guys on board and the professors and everybody else on board. We also then used that to get the Cabinet Office, Department for Business Innovation and Skills, my members who were telling me all this as well, and we then started to build a very big tent. And we realized that if we had an objective, we could build a tent around it. And the big tent is formed of professional bodies, the government, I've mentioned some of those, and of course the education and the university piece. The next question was, where do you start? I'd like every single student to get some level of cybersecurity education, no matter what their degree is, because everybody relies on IT. I can't do that. It's like boiling the ocean, but I can start somewhere. We all worked out and we all agreed, including the government, who were very interested in this, the best place to start was computer science degrees, because it would answer quite a few of the problems I mentioned before, the employability piece, the lack of employability 6 months after graduation, etc. And also it played to all our strengths. These guys want to learn and change. The government was looking and hoping education was changing anyway through REFs and the Teaching Excellence Framework and all the other initiatives that are going through at the moment. And our professional bodies that we spoke to were all saying, we really want people to come in. We need that replacement pipeline. So that's where we came from. We built the big tent, and the big tent includes all of those people and many more. We do have the BCS on board and the BCS Accreditation Committee, who are very pivotal in computing science degrees. We have the IET on board, and we're now working with their accreditation committee. Why? Because the IET looks after all the engineers. The engineers are heavily involved with ICS and SCADA, call it what you will. They do a lot of programming, they do a lot of system design now. They need to know about this stuff as well. CompTIA, obviously, because they're part of the accreditation, they're part of the security qualification industry. Tech Partnership, because of the apprenticeships, and the national occupational standards that define how apprenticeships work, what apprentices should know and learn, and most importantly, they also cover the non-academic, non-university route that we can use to bring people into our profession. And CPHC, then obviously all these people here, and then us over here with IISP who played, and CREST who both have played quite an important role. Over 2 years, we ran a series of meetings. We got all the Russell Group universities into a room, we got all the government into the room, we got all the professional bodies into the room, and out of it came a set of guidelines. The guidelines are now mandatory. They're mandatory they're mandatory for every single computer science and IT-related degree in the UK. And they're guidelines and principles on cybersecurity. That means 80,000 students in total are being taught, or will be taught, the principles of cybersecurity at undergraduate level. 80,000 may seem like a big number or a small number, I don't know, but that's where we're starting from. So every undergraduate degree is now going through a process of actually taking the guidelines and the principles that were developed. You can download them off the internet, it's quite simple, just type in CPHC principles and principles of cybersecurity. We've got the link on the slides, I believe. They are now being woven into curricula right across the country. And I've actually been, for the last 3 days, I've actually been with the CPHC doing curriculum development workshops, and so far we've talked to 27 universities. We have another 53 coming to our next set of meetings. And this is about how to weave cybersecurity in every single module, every single year of an undergraduate degree. So that's what we've been doing, and that's where the outcomes come out of it. We are now working with our friends at Tech Partnership to make sure all of their cyber apprenticeships use the same words, the same principles as are in the guidelines at university level. So foundation degrees, digital apprentices, cyber apprentices, what are they called now? The university technical colleges that are going to be offering degree apprenticeships will all of those under that cyber banner will have, and computing science banner will have the same principles embedded all the way through. I don't know how many people are doing apprenticeships, but again, that's another big number. The big tent is still alive. We're still doing, as I say, all the meetings with academics under the banner of CPHC, and we're also now understanding how we can best help our friends at the higher education, the university sector, to learn how to teach, to learn how to, where the material is they can use to really bring cybersecurity life to their students. There's the document, and that's the link. You can actually download it from the CPHC website as well. We are also now taking this outside of the UK. We're now working with the European Union and the CEN, which is the European Standards Agency. They're the people behind the European Competency Framework for IT, ECF. We're now working with them to make sure cybersecurity goes into that. And we're making sure that what goes into that is aligned to everything that's going into our degrees, into our apprenticeships. You get the picture? It's about consistency. It's about really bringing the principles all the way through at every single point in the educational and beyond journey. As I say, we're doing a roadshow at the moment. I have another 5 universities to go to. There are 1 or 2 of those universities represented here, so I'll say thank you now before I get there for running the seminars and providing the locations for us. It's the biggest number of universities who've ever come together under the banner of the CPHC for a particular initiative, which I think is fantastic because it shows the commitment of universities to change, to learn, and to improve their the education, or strengthen or enhance education of students to cover topics that are relevant. I think it's a fantastic highlight of how actually industry and academia can really work together for the benefit of a lot of people and for the benefit of quite a few industries as well. So the themes of these, I'm not going to go through them all, I'm going to just give you the high-level summary. The first thing we talk about is information and risk. They're the basic key principles. What are the attributes of information that we seek to protect? C, confidentiality, I, integrity, and A, availability. Yes? Getting those principles in every single course about operating systems, databases, networking, software programming, the list goes on and on. Then we talk about what are the threats? What is a threat? What is a vulnerability? Well, actually, it's a defect in software terms. Making sure that people understand the terminology we use and how it translates into the terminology that they use. But again, weaving all those all the way through. Now, some of this actually comes under what's called professional, legal, social. It's the bigger sort of softer skills that have to be taught under computing science. But it's in there. And again, it weaves its way through. Then we have architecture and operations, arguably the most tough bit to teach, because this is all about what is a security architecture, how you create defense in depth, how controls work, so on and so forth, testing of controls. Then software and secure system development and design. Build it in, don't add it in at the end. For those of you who know a guy called Kevin Suhu, he did a thesis about 20 years ago, and he worked out if you design security in, it costs you $1. If you put it in during the middle of the cycle, it costs you 10. If you try and stick it on at the end, it costs you 100. So why not design it in? Why not teach everybody who has design authority or may have design authority to build stuff in? And that's what this course, that's what this core concept is all about. It's about not designing insecure systems. It's about teaching programmers input validation. Everyone's smiling, yeah. Input validation. If you solve that problem, 80% of the attacks we see would probably go away, because then false inputs would not be accepted, and then hackers would not have easy routes to do certain things. And then finally, the big one, and sort of the last piece we went into, which is management, policy, the trade-offs between risks and threats and costs and benefits and so on, and basically things such as compliance. Yes, the fluffier things, but the things that also put security into the business, that allow security to interact with the business and allow individuals to work in security or IT and know how policies, etc., work and governance works in an organization. So that's what we've covered. We're now going through, as I said before, with all the universities, we're learning what kind of materials they need, what kind of help they need to put these into all of their courses. And actually, it's been really interesting to understand the bias of various universities, whether they're more technical or less, and so on and so forth. So we're now really kind of moving forwards, because having started the ball rolling with universities, now having started to engage with apprenticeships, we want to start thinking about, well, how can we as a profession now start helping transitioners? How can we actually help people who want to enhance their cybersecurity knowledge? Because they could be pen testers. There might be pen testers who want to move into management or want to become general InfoSec analysts. How can we help those transitions? How can we help people come in from the military who may have fantastic comms security experience, an operational security experience? How can we translate that to help them come into the security arena and bring some of those skills with them to help enrich our teams? And we are really starting to think through about how we can do all of this. And this is a we, and I come back to this. It's the CPHC, it's the government, it's ISC squared, it's the professional bodies who are doing this. It's not me. I'm the idiot who, when I joined ISC squared 2 years ago, I got a briefing on this and I went, that's brilliant, let's go do it. I'll stand up and I'll make sure it happens because I think it's really important. But it's a we. I am very much first among equals, as the Prime Minister should be in the Cabinet. I'm very much first among equals here, and I recognise that when I come up and talk about this, I am talking for a huge number of individuals and a huge number of very august institutions. We are looking and we are starting to understand how we can go and talk to the business schools and the business school accreditation bodies to see if we can get cyber into courses such as MBAs, working on the principle that, well, yes, we can get the comp sci guys to have a level of understanding of cybersecurity, but actually you need the managers, you need the business execs, you need the marketers, you need all those people to have an understanding as well. We need to understand how to calibrate it, how it fits into their courses, but that's something that we're starting to look at now. And maybe it's through their professional bodies rather than through the business schools. But we're feeling our way, we're learning as we go along. So, building the future. I think I'm doing all right for time, aren't I? Good. I know at the beginning I kind of glossed over the ISC squared bit, but we do have this vision of a safe and secure cyber world, a world where the advantages of the internet of technology can be harvested for the benefit of us all. New economies, new jobs, so on and so forth. It fits into what the UK government wants to develop as well. It's not that difficult to understand. How can we do that? How can we, and again it's the royal we, it's the professions, etc., come together to do this? There are a couple of things. I wouldn't be doing this work if it wasn't for that. If it wasn't for my members telling me, for God's sake, Adrian, go and help us, talk to universities, understand how they teach and understand how they turn out graduates, and then help us help them. I couldn't do it without having the backing of an organisation, without having the backing of professional people. The same is true of IISP and CREST. You all work very hard to get your certifications, your qualifications, and it means something. People look at you and go, gosh, you've got X, that must mean you know your stuff. Carries a kind of referential power. Just the same as having a doctorate or being a professor carries that same kind of referential power. You can use that en masse. It's knowing how to steer it. The other one, of course, is, well, the great thing about working in cybersecurity is that we are all very altruistic. We all like to help each other, we all like to share, and we all kind of, pull together and do stuff. I have people who go and talk in schools regularly. I have people who do a whole range of things. They don't need to do them, but they want to give something back. And that altruism is fantastic because, again, en masse, as a block, we can use that to help ourselves and to help our communities and to help other bodies get us and understand what we're trying to do. And then finally, well, professional bodies exist to do one important thing. We define what we believe is acceptable in terms of knowledge, in terms of behavior, in terms of ethics. We also help define what we believe are the acceptable starting points. Look around this room, all of these paintings, and I wonder what they'd make of this kind of presentation. These all help set the bar for surgery. These all help set the requirements for people to become surgeons. Going back to the 18th century, one of those paintings is. We started about 25 years ago. We don't have these august rooms and these august people around us. We are those august people. We are the people who can set our profession up and set it on the right path. But we can only do that, again, by being collaborative, by working as a big tent. So we do this, and this is something that I know every professional body does, is you go through and you say, what kind of things do you expect people to know? What kind of job do they do? What kind of skills and qualifications do they need? And then you write it down and you use that as part of your entry requirements. You can't be a CISP unless you have 5 years experience. You cannot join IISP unless you can prove, and you go through the ISP skills framework. That's what we do. All of that is great material to help teach the next generation, and all that is great material to help share with the teachers of the next generations. Whether it be CBKs or whether it be interviews, whatever it may be, all of this really, really helps, and it's something that we and ISC Squared are starting to share more and more of, because we realise the benefit of sharing. It's not more members for me, it's the pipeline. It's 80,000 students who know something of cybersecurity that we can pull from to replace ourselves rather than having a pool of 800. 10% of 800 is not very big, 10% of 80,000 is a hell of a lot bigger. So, remember what I said? We have many touch points, and we, as this big tent, are starting to explore them. We focused on this one, we are starting to look at this one, and we are focusing on this one. But also, if we think about this, we also have an advocacy role, all of us, to our communities, to our businesses, which is this. What we really want is we want everybody to be more digitally literate, the whole community. I went to a Department of Culture, Media and Sport session where they asked the question, how many cybersecurity people do we need in the UK? And people were going around the room and someone said, oh, I think there's only about 200,000 jobs, and oh, I would say, oh, 150, or no, maybe 500,000. And I went, 65 million. The population of the UK should be digitally literate and cyber aware, because that's the economy. And the UK economy wants to be digitally literate and cyber aware. That's the number we really want. We'll never get there. I know we'll never get there. But if we can, we have a role to play in helping with this. And also we have a role in helping cybersecurity be seen just as part of business as usual, as part of what we do and as part of the way that businesses work. So even though we're focusing on computer science here and cyber apprenticeships here, we're starting on that journey. I believe it's a really important journey. Will I be part of that journey going forwards? I really do hope so. There's a whole set of things I can see us doing over the next couple of years as the big tent. But to the big tent to work, we need many more people, many more individuals as part of it. So, I've talked about all of this, but what I will really say is there are many routes here, and we are looking and we are hoping that as a profession we can find more of those routes and take advantage of them. So, we've got it. We know this stuff. We know there are great careers, we know there are fantastic jobs, and we know that actually working in cybersecurity is quite good. Yes, it has its good moments, but it has its bad moments, like any job. We know that, but we never tell anybody. We know what we want, but we never tell anybody. What we've tried to do over the last couple of years in this big tent is we've started to create that room for dialogue. We've started to create that ability to go out and talk to people, so everybody knows what we're doing, where we're going, and how they can join. And right now, the best place we can start is at higher education and universities. We will expand it. We are looking at working with other organisations, as I said, but we've made that start as a profession. And now it is up to us as a profession to keep that journey going. So with that, thank you very much for your attention. I hope you found that interesting and insightful. If you have any questions or want to throw chairs at me, that's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you.